Yesterday on The Five, Jessica Tarlov did what Jessica Tarlov does, which is just spew basic left-wing talking points from the organized, agitating left in America and the Democrat Party, and she was wrong, and she misrepresented, and she lied. And then, in came Kayleigh McEnany. You're going to want to see what she did, but first, sadly, the shot before the chaser. Here's Jessica Tarlov.
The president was forced to make that decision because what happened to Alex Preddy, that he was murdered, was not divisive and was not partisan. It was clear as day. And there are video analyses up in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal have both done incredible reporting on this, that you can see clearly that an agent had taken his gun already. I think it's the one wearing the black coat. Then you have the guy with the gray coat. After the guy is shot, you already get 10 bullets in him, even though his hands were up. He had his phone in one hand, which you're allowed to do. You're allowed to video. The other one like this, crouched over. And then you hear another guy going, "Where's the gun? Where's the gun?" Well, shouldn't you know that before you kill somebody?
No.
It takes a lot.
No, you shouldn't.
It takes a lot to unite the NRA and Greg Abbott and other major conservative forces in this country against the Trump administration and the way they're doing immigration enforcement. The First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and the Fourth Amendment have all been violated by the way that they are carrying this out. And people saw it clear as day, and that's why they responded this way. And the president, who I think most of the time has better instincts than Stephen Miller or Kristi Noem, could see this for what it was and knows that there has to be a change in course. But this rush to come out and say, again, like Renee Good, that he's a domestic terrorist.
But you're rushing, too. You've clearly
I'm
arrived at a conclusion before an investigation.
Based on watching all of the video, and the president...
Have you seen the body cam video? I was unaware you had the body cam.
You know what? It's going to exonerate all the agents. You're completely right. Stephen Miller saying an assassin tried to murder federal agents, and this is your response. And J.D. Vance retweeting it says something about where this administration is and how they're considering it before and after the murder of Alex Preddy. And this will go down in history as a turning point for this. Greg Bovino wouldn't be leaving tomorrow if an innocent person wasn't killed. And the double standards that are being employed for how you have to behave versus how these agents have to behave is mind-boggling to me. Kyle Rittenhouse was a conservative hero, right, for walking into a protest, actually brandishing a weapon. But this guy who had a legal permit to carry and already had his gun removed, to some people, I guess, is some sort of instigator when he was actually going to help a woman who had been pushed down and tear-gassed by ICE. We have the right to protest. That should be upheld and respected, and it is not being.
Jessica, did you?
Wow. Well, you know, listen, at least she has a really lovely, soothing, pleasant voice to listen to, doesn't she? Good God. You know, it's funny. My dad, when I was coming of age, starting to date, sometimes, you know, dabbling in serious relationships, you know, dads are always like, oh, what if this is the one he marries? And I'll never forget my dad said, Larry, there are a lot of beautiful women out there. And I don't know, you know, don't care what feature in a woman you like. Their eyes, their lips, their hair, you know, maybe some things below the neck that you are attracted to. That's fine, too. There's a lot of women with all those features. But let me tell you something. You're going to have to live with that voice for the rest of your life, my dad told me. The voice, because all that other stuff, it comes and goes. But for the rest of your life, when you pick your wife, it's that voice. That voice. And that's, God bless Jessica Tarlov. I'm sure she's going to find the right. If she hasn't already found the man. I don't know what her marital status is, but that guy, whoo. So much to unpack there from what you just heard. I think my favorite bit of misinformation there, you know, tell me you don't know anything about law enforcement or dangerous situations that involve firearms without telling me such and so. When you say, you hear one of the agents say, where's the gun? Where's the gun? Shouldn't you know where the gun is before you start shooting? Okay, let's game this out for a second. And by the way, I hate the fact that we even have to engage in this moronic conversation right now, which is frankly disrespectful to the deceased and their family as they're grieving. You should just let the investigator. But no, you got people like this who are saying moronic things like that. I'm not trying to score political points off the death of this man, but she is. And it deserves a response. It demands a response. Your law enforcement, You're in a tussle with a suspect. It gets physical. You know that that suspect has a gun. You now don't know where the gun is. And Jessica Tarlov, in her brilliance and wisdom, says you should know where the gun is before you start shooting. No. Actually, that's exactly when you start shooting. Because if you don't know where the gun is, that means you might find out where it is the hard way. That's the whole point. That's entirely the point. Oh, by the way, I do also love that Jessica Tarlov and her ilk suddenly have a newfound concern for your Second Amendment rights. Did you hear that? Did you hear how her main objection here to the Trump administration in Minneapolis at this turning point is that they are violating certain amendments, including the Second Amendment? By the way, Fourth Amendment, thank you. You should really look into the raids on people's homes for praying outside an abortion mill. But thank you for your newfound interest in that as well as the Second Amendment. This is a turning point, by the way, because all of their words about carrying a firearm in a public place should definitely be used against them in the future. And one other thing before we get to Kayleigh McEnany's brilliant response, and that is, you're right, we have every right to protest in America, but what we're seeing in Minneapolis, it's not protesting. You know, they always say, oh, we want to protest, but then they immediately pivot to resist. We're resisting. And what did Tim Walz say in the video that we showed yesterday? Causing good trouble. That's not protesting. That's direct action. See, protesting is passive. Protesting is sitting, standing on the sidelines, showing and saying what you feel about what's going on in front of you and your opposition to it. What we're seeing in Minneapolis is not that. It is direct interference and action that goes well beyond protesting. You don't have a right to do that, and everyone knows that. Okay, so Jessica Tarlov shows up at Fox yesterday. It's time for the 5. She gets into the green room. She looks around, and she's like, oh, my gosh. No Gutfeld? No Gutfeld? This is amazing. And Katie Pavlich, she's left now. She started her own show on News Nation. That's amazing. And Judge Janine, of course, is already in the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. Phenomenal. Jessica Tarlov gets on set and she thinks, this is great. I'm going to be able to say all the stupid crap that I want, and there will be no one here to push back. And then Kayleigh McEnany showed up.
Not being, they
Jessica,
were not.
Did you call for an investigation after Renee Good? You did.
Yeah. Well,
So-
yeah, after.
So
actually,
are you calling for an investigation now, or are you
course.
just stating a conclusion? Because it seems like you've arrived at a conclusion before an investigation.
I'm saying that Jesse said this isn't this is divisive and it's partisan, and it's not.
I
Yeah, it
don't.
is.
I,
No,
I
it's
don't.
not.
I think
Yes,
it
it
is
is.
irresponsible to call someone a domestic terrorism before you have the facts.
So you agree with me?
Yes,
that
I agree with you on that.
Stephen
but
Miller,
but here's
J.D. Vance
the
have all
point,
made
Jessica.
mistakes
We've
here.
listened for 2 minutes. You are no different than Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem came out and said domestic terrorist. You are coming out and saying murderer. When you say murder, you are calling those 6 agents murderers before you have the facts. The responsible way to handle this is to say, 1, it is a tragedy anytime a U.S. citizen dies. It is a tragedy that Renee Good died. It is a tragedy that Alex Preddy died. Number 2, we call for an investigation because we don't arrive at conclusions. We don't call people domestic terrorists who were killed before investigations. Disagree with the administration on that. So too does
Renee Good.
So too does President Trump and on Renee Good.
No, well, he didn't on Renee
But
Good.
you are not calling for an investigation. You are retracting into partisan talking points by coming out and calling these guys murderers. We don't know the facts. A responsible thing is an investigation. President Trump has been the most responsible person in all of this. Today, Caroline was asked, what do you say when Kristi Noem says there was maximum damage? And they said, Trump wants an investigation and to let the facts lead. What do you think about calling them domestic terrorists? I have not heard Donald J. Trump characterize Alex Preddy that way. Donald Trump is responsible. You know who's not? Walz. I was on the airwave when this broke. 11:03 a.m. The White House called Walz. They were trying to defuse this. Walz comes out and says thousands of violent, untrained officers are out in Minnesota. One responsible party, the president. Did those underneath him act irresponsibly? Yes. But Walz and Donald Trump, don't even put them in the same camp. Donald Trump's leading. You are no different, I'm sorry, than Kristi Noem.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of differences between her and Kristi Noem. Superficial ones, to be sure, but I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, here she is, railing on Noam and on Miller and other people in the administration for saying they're calling these people terrorists. They're saying that these people were there to kill a bunch of people. But meanwhile, they murdered him and they're murderers. And Kayleigh McEnany is like, dude, do you even listen to yourself? Do you have any sort of filter in your brain that sort of sorts out how hypocritical you are with the nonsense that just spews out unabated? As I mentioned, Mr. Gutfeld had the day off as well, and it was Joey Jones who sat in his chair. And when it came his turn, well, let's just sit back and watch this together, because I have no notes. I got nothing to add. This is just, this is worthy of the Louvre.
There's a couple of things. Number one, the Second Amendment is a right. I'm not a Second Amendment absolutist. You have the right to carry a weapon to defend yourself, not the privilege. It is a right. Those rights come with restrictions. I think you would understand that more than anyone at this table. One of those restrictions is you have to have your ID and your permit on you. We don't know. Current reports are he didn't have either one of those on, at which point he's not carrying legally. But number two, even beyond that, with the right to carry a firearm comes the responsibility to do it correctly and to do it with foresight and to do it understanding the situation you're walking into and what could happen once you get there. Just about every state offers a class on that. And if you carry your firearm, you should take that class. And if your state charges you for it, you should go protest for that class to be taxpayer funded, because it is a right. So that's important. We can talk about policy all day long. There's only one person in this world that could have absolutely prevented Alex Pretty from getting shot that day, and it's Alex Pretty. That doesn't mean I think he should have been shot. I don't think it was necessary whatsoever to shoot Alex Pretty to save a life. But I get to watch that incident from behind Alex Pretty, not as one of the arresting officers and not as potentially the person that I believe from looking at the video did shoot him. Why does he have 10 rounds in him? Because if you have to shoot anybody once, you better shoot them enough to kill them, because if you're shooting somebody, you think they're trying to kill you. Every police officer in this country is taught that. If you want to change that, go lobby to have it changed. Why was he shot? He was shot because of the reasonableness clause, the reasonableness doctrine. The Supreme Court decided this, which is the fact that if you are a police officer conducting police work and someone has, and it's explicitly outlined, someone has resisted arrest, violently or not, disobeyed orders, and shown the means to harm you, then you have the ability to protect yourself. Now, do I think he should have been shot? No, because I see 10 things that happened before that happened that could have been handled differently. But what I don't see are the 10 minutes before that happened. You call him a protester, I call him an agitator. He showed up with a cell phone. He showed up in the middle of the street, in the middle of an operation. That's common sense. I don't care what your passions are. To carry a weapon on your person and to get in the middle of a police operation, whether you believe it or not, that is lawful. 100%. Another way it could have been prevented is if there was a police cordon from Minneapolis Police Department stopping people from, like Alex Pretty, from getting in the middle of the operation rather than holding a sign and speaking loudly and proudly from 100 feet away. That is the end of the story. There might even be a federal agent that goes to jail because some jury or a federal investigation decides he acted prematurely or shot him and shouldn't have. I'm not arguing or disputing that because I haven't seen the investigation. But I know for a fact Alex Pretty had no business where he was in that moment. I know for a fact that he did resist arrest. And if you are carrying lawfully, the moment you resist arrest, you are now carrying unlawfully, to the point that in the state of Minnesota, your carry permit is revoked in that moment. So the point here is nobody's condemned in this other than the politicians that let it happen. Yep. And if for you that's Donald Trump and if for you that's Tim Walz, as an American citizen, I'm glad both of them talked today. This doesn't ever need to happen again. Border Patrol agents need to get to the border and do their job. Minneapolis Police Department, all 600 of them if they need to be there to help ICE surgically extract people like, what's his name, Jose Huerta Chuma, who is violent rap sheet that includes domestic assault involving intentional bodily harm. I don't care who you are in this country, but if you're willing to risk your life for that person, whatever happens to you, my sympathy goes down quite a bit. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I love people. I even love bad people. But for God's sake, have some common sense. That's your responsibility, especially if you're carrying a weapon. And that was not exercised, and I can't help that.
Like I said, no notes. In fact, could you all give this video right here a thumbs up and a like on behalf of Joey Jones? We'll send them his way. I promise. We'll let him know. But, I mean, if you don't like that, if you can't support that, if you're an American and you can't agree with all of that, or at the very least 95 to 98% of it, you need to rethink where you're sitting right now in this country. Absolutely brilliant at every level. Let me also say this, because we like to beat up on Jessica Tarlov rhetorically and physically here. Wait, not physically, rhetorically. We do. And we like to, when she says things that get under our skin, we like to point it out and we like to show you how she's responded to. That's always a good segment for us, frankly. I think it's cathartic and I think you enjoy it too. But let me just say something about Jessica Tarlov. If she weren't on that panel saying the stuff that you just saw 10 minutes ago, it wouldn't elicit responses like you just saw from Joey Jones, like you just saw from Kayleigh McEnany. I mean, sometimes you need that Jessica Tarlov there to bring out the very best in people. And that's what we just saw. And that was phenomenal. Now, as we reported yesterday on the show, the president was sending border czar Tom Homan to Minneapolis to assess the situation and report back to the president directly. Being the border czar, he reports directly to the president. Yesterday during the press briefing, Caroline Levitt actually laid out some of the details there.
This is a Washington Post headline from 9 years ago, 2016. Meet the man the White House has honored for deporting illegal immigrants. And I would remind everyone in this room that it was former President Barack Hussein Obama who awarded a medal to Mr. Homan. So he's obviously very qualified. He has the full trust and faith of the president. He will continue to have these meetings in the hopes that ICE and local law enforcement can cooperate and work together to have successful immigration enforcement, as we've seen in almost every other state across the country.
I do love that move of reminding them that Obama celebrated this guy. That was in 2019 when Obama and the Democrats, on behalf of Hillary Clinton, needed to turn the narrative around and let them all know, it's like, oh yeah, we're against illegal immigration. We deport all the time. Sure, in fact, I'm going to give a medal to someone who deports all the time. That was Tom Homan, who's worked for multiple presidents in the White House, and he's doing a great job for the president as well, because he respects our borders and recognizes the crime that comes into this country when you allow illegal immigrants to run rampant at our border, as we're seeing play out right now. I want to say that the Trump administration is playing their typical 4D chess maneuver here, as now Homan is being brought in there. And yeah, he was celebrated by the Washington Post and the Obama administration. And you're even seeing liberal Democrats in Washington, D.C. and in the media saying, well, yeah, Homan's the grown-up in the room. They're all saying, yeah, well, Homan's going to bring some sanity to the situation. Homan's the good guy here. I've seen this. Have you seen this? It's like, dude, you hated Tom Homan like 6 months ago. 6 months ago, Homan was Gestapo. Homan was Nazi. And now Tom Homan's in there. I almost feel like they decided to swing the pendulum so far in a certain direction here that when Homan comes in and says, all right, everybody out of the pool. Everybody calm down. Now here's how we're going to focus our efforts. They're basically right where they were anyway and where they wanted to be with regard to their policies of apprehending the criminal illegal immigrants who have detainers and deport them back to the countries where they belong. But in some way, they had to get the left and the media to beg for Tom Homan. Please bring in Tom Homan. Please have Tom Homan take control here. And it's like, oh, okay, you got it. No problem. We'll do exactly what you want. Also, by the way, at the briefing, Caroline Levitt with a bit of a reminder for the media about what this story is really all about.
Unlawfully obstruct lawful immigration enforcement in this country. And these agitators are making it nearly impossible for ICE to do their jobs and for federal law enforcement to carry out the will of the American people to deport the worst of the worst. I would just encourage everyone to please imagine in this room, all of you come to the White House every day to report on the President of the United States and the administration. You come into this briefing room, you walk through the gates of the White House. Just imagine if there were left-wing agitators or agitators of any kind who were in your face, who were doxing you, who were harassing you, who were physically threatening you, who were biting off your fingers in the case of two Border Patrol agents we saw this past weekend in Minneapolis. That would make it very difficult for you to show up and do your job here at the White House every single day. That's what these officers in Minneapolis are facing. That's why the president is calling on Governor Walz and Mayor Frey for these three very simple and common sense points.
That's right. And that very important thing to constantly remind everybody. I would add to it, when they're not biting off your fingers, they've got an army of people who are getting in your face, right literally in front of your face, blowing a high-pitched whistle at, off the charts decibels. keeping you from being able to communicate with your fellow officers while you're on the job, doing a very dangerous job, by the way, and going after very dangerous people, and they're blowing whistles the entire time. They're also, as we've discussed, incredibly coordinated. Yesterday, we highlighted the work of Cam Higbee and the Signal chat that is the coordinating sort of home base for all of these operations. It's a scandal. It's an absolute scandal and sort of the Rosetta Stone to everything that you're seeing in Minneapolis and also expanding out to other cities because, boy, they're replicating their efforts across state lines at this point, too. We saw it show up in Arizona the other day, just yesterday, when ICE showed up at a place, and within 5 minutes, there's this horde of people all following the same tactics. There's literally an operations manual in these Signal chats with all of these people, outrageously highly connected Democrats as part of the Signal chat in Minneapolis. Cam Higbee, the independent journalist, infiltrated it and showed all that information. Why is this story not getting more coverage? Even in new media now, even in shows like this, they're not. Are you afraid that you don't want to show somebody else's great work? We're not. We don't. We want to. Cam Higbee should get all of the credit in the world. Go to his X account. Subscribe to his. Oh, I'm not even following him. Look at that. That's ridiculous. I was just going to say, and I will subscribe later. Cam Higbee is doing incredible work. We don't care highlighting that. We don't care about showing it to you. Maybe that's why other streaming shows aren't doing it either. Cable news should be all over this. Broadcast news should be all over this. Every single newspaper. You may not agree with the outrageous, let me rephrase that. You may agree with the people in this Signal chat. You may be on the side of the agitators. You may be on the side of the organized resistance here. Fine. Be on their side, New York Times. Be on their side, Washington Post. I don't care whose side you're on, but to deny the newsworthiness of this story, to deny that this is a credible news story that is part of this entire narrative out of Minneapolis, to just ignore this part of it while you're telling the story about the chaos in Minneapolis, you are willfully ignoring a huge part of what we're all seeing unfold before our very eyes. And Cam Higbee, by the way, has more information. He's accessed more names who were involved in this Signal chat. It's an outrageous scandal. But check this one out. As you see, he said, "Shiver me timbers, they're spooked. If you attended nightly Zoom healing space tonight, we're using your full name or first name and last initial as a Zoom username. Do these two things ASAP. Deactivate all your social media accounts with your names on them, including LinkedIn, for at least a brief time. Or change your username and PFP to something random. Sign up for a Google alert on your name. Consider services like Delete Me or Easy Opt-outs. A recording from tonight was posted on Nazi Twitter by Cam Higbee. His followers have been, it goes on to say, apparently they had a big Zoom therapy session. Cam Higbee got a recording of it, posted it on Nazi Twitter, apparently they're calling it. And now everybody that was involved in it, they're freaking out because they don't want you to know how radical they are. They don't want you to know how insane they are. And they don't want their employers to know about it. And so, as Cam Higbee pointed out, they're spooked and they're all changing their names now. By the way, just briefly, because it's worth watching the entire thing. But there is this one moment in the therapy session from the Signal chat types that I just wanted to show you. This is who they are. This is who they are.
But two different ways of moving that can be very helpful if you're involved in something very stressful. One would be like a shaking. So if you might be like, oh, my body would just like to, and just shake it off. So you don't have to do that if that's not what your body is calling you.
This
but
is
if
real.
You are, let it happen.
This is real. I do like Buddha over his shoulder. Or is that Baal? I'm not sure exactly who we're bowing to there. But kudos to Cam Higbee. Let me close this segment out real fast before we move on to our next segment. To remind you, by the way, if we could just get back to Tom Homan for a second, since Tom Homan is now taking charge of the operation and the communications and the messaging, because lost in all of this is what ICE is doing. Lost in all of this is what Border Patrol is doing. Lost in all of this is who they're going after. Lost in all of this is how we got here after the Biden administration. And lost in all of this is who the real victims in all of this is. And spoiler alert, it's not the crazy left-wing white liberals who have no North Star, who have no moral compass, and who actually think that they're on the side of the Avengers, chasing down ICE agents and Border Patrol, getting in their way and making their lives dangerous. No, they're not the victims here. Let's go back to our border czar, Tom Homan, the man who's now sort of coordinating this, where he very briefly and very succinctly earlier this year explained exactly why we're here.
6% decline. 96% less people are coming. How many women aren't being raped? How many children aren't dying making that journey? How many women and children aren't being sex trafficked into this country every day? How many known suspected terrorists aren't just walking across that border? President Trump and this administration is saving thousands of lives every month. Hard stop. That's just a stone cold fact. I'm just proud to be a part of this.
There you go. That lays it out for you. That's why this is happening. Everyone, why is this happening? I didn't vote for this. Yes, we did. We voted for that. We didn't vote for the chaos, but of course, Tom Homan and DHS and ICE and Border Patrol aren't causing the chaos. That's why it's not happening anywhere else in this country. The chaos is happening because of the organized agitator, direct action, well-funded monsters who are getting in the way of these men and women who are trying to do their jobs, uphold our laws, uphold the Constitution, and yes, carry out exactly what we voted for.